Welcome back. I know it's late on the East Coast when I'm recording this, but this is a video I wanted to do before I left today, and then I just didn't have the time. It was noisy around the neighborhood, and so I thought, all right, I'll just record it after I'm done the street hockey. The street hockey lasted about 4 hours today, so it was a lot. Likely the last street hockey meetup I'm going to have for a while, so yeah, we made that one last. Anyways, I want to talk about Terry Sawchuk. So when we talk about the greatest goaltenders of all time, right? And we can have the debate with Raw, with Brodeur, with Hasek, with various other goaltenders. But for people who saw Terry Sawchuk, a lot of people who saw Terry Sawchuk play still say Terry Sawchuk was the best goaltender in the history of the National Hockey League. And this is where I, not having seen him play, I don't have an opinion on him. He retired before I was born. So I didn't see him play, but again, if somebody says to me, hey, I saw Terry Sawchuk, he was the best goaltender of all time, my answer to that is, all right, okay. So Terry Sawchuk makes his debut with the Detroit Red Wings in the 49-50 season. Now, not a lot of games played by backup goaltenders. In fact, backup goalies, what's that? So he played 7 games with the Wings, 4 wins, which was 7th in the NHL. His 3 losses were 7th, so that tells you a lot right there. No ties, 2.29 goals against average, and a shutout. Now, normally, I have save percentage, but I didn't see a chart with the save percentage all the way back to his rookie season. So there were definitely seasons with save percentages, but not all of them. So I'm going with the more traditional goals against average and shutouts, which is good because his shutouts, impressive. So 50-51, he plays all 70 games for Detroit, so he leads goaltenders there. His 44 wins, that's an NHL record that would stay until it was broken by Marty Brodeur. I believe Luongo broke that record as well. But 44 wins is a lot, and especially over a 70-game season. And remember, there's no overtime or anything, so those are all regulation wins. His 13 losses were 5th in the NHL. He also had 13 ties. His goals against 1.97, which was 2nd overall. 11 shutouts in the playoffs, 6 games, a 2-4 record, 1.68 goals against average, and 1 shutout. So he wins the Calder. He's also a first-team All-Star that year. 51-52, plays 70 games again, so every game he leads the league there. 44 wins again, leading the league in that category. So he has 88 wins in 2 seasons. That's a lot. 14 losses, which was 6th overall, and 12 ties. A 1.9 goals against average, that's first. And 12 shutouts. He wins all 8 playoff games he plays, and 0.62 goals against average and 4 shutouts. Now, is this the modern age of hockey? No. But is that still very impressive? Yeah, kind of is. Half of his wins are via shutout. And again, this is where the mystique for him comes in. And this is where you end up with the octopus for Detroit. Because back when Detroit wins the Stanley Cups in this era, you need 8 wins. So the 8 wins, you have 8 arms and an octopus, and there you go. That's where that comes from. Stanley Cup win, yes, the Vezina, because the Vezina is then what the Jennings is now. The Vezina was not voted on. It was whoever has the lowest goals against average. And so that's your Vezina winner. He was a first-team All-Star, and he was 4th in Hart voting that year. So, pretty strong second season in the National Hockey League. 52-53, plays 63 games. His 32 wins was 1st overall. His 15 losses are 6th overall. 16 ties, 1.89 goals against average. Again, that's first. 9 shutouts. So that's 32 shutouts in 3 seasons. 6 playoff games, a 2-4 record, 3.38 goals against average. He has a shutout there as well. Vezina winner, yep. First team All-Star, absolutely. 1953-54 season, plays 67 games. So he's still playing a lot. I only took note of when he was in first place for games played. But 35 wins that year, 19 losses, which is 5th, and 13 ties. So he leads the league in wins 4 straight years. Again, remarkable. 1.93 goals against average, which is 2nd, and 12 shutouts again. 12. In the playoffs, 12 games, an 8-4 record, so another Stanley Cup. 1.6 goals against average, 2 shutouts. He's a second-team All-Star as well as being a Cup winner, so not too shabby. 1954-55, plays 68 games with the Red Wings. 40 wins, which is 1st, so 5 straight seasons he leads the league in wins. 17 losses, which is 4th, and 11 ties. 1.96 goals against average, 12 shutouts. So he was 2nd in goals against average. He has 12 shutouts. 11 games in the playoffs, 8-3 record, 2.36 goals against average, 1 shutout. Stanley Cup, yes. Vezina win, well, yeah, absolutely. And second team All-Star, yep. So everything's going well, and then he's traded. He's traded to the Boston Bruins. June the 3rd, he was traded with Marcel Bonin, Lorne Davis, Vic Stasiuk for Gilles Boisvert, Riel Sheffrefil, Norm Corcoran, Warren Godfrey, and Ed Sanford. So if you're like, the Ed Sanford? Yep, the Ed Sanford. No idea. 55-56 with the Boston Bruins now, 68 games, has 22 wins, 4th overall, 33 losses is first, because Boston, not very good. 13 ties, 2.6 goals against average, which is 3rd in the league, 9 shutouts. So only 22 wins, but 9 of them via shutout. So he's doing his best on a team in Boston. It's not very good. 56-57, he only plays 34 games for the Bruins that year. 18 wins is 5th overall, 10 losses is 6th overall in the league. 6 ties, 2.38 goals against average, which is 3rd, and 2 shutouts. So he's 4th in Hart voting with 18 wins and only 34 games played. And then June the 10th, he is traded back to Detroit, and Detroit trades Johnny Bucyk to the Boston Bruins. So how's that for a trade? Bucyk for Sawchuk. And that's a trade that works out for both. Bucyk has an incredible long career in Boston, and Sawchuk, he kind of belongs in Detroit, right? So 57-58, he plays 70 games, leads the league there. 29 wins is 2nd, 29 losses is 3rd in the league. 12 ties, 2.94 goals against is 6th overall, and 3 shutouts. So you can tell where the league brought in the red line, the modern game, and you see scoring go up when that happens. 4 games in the playoffs. He loses all 4, ends up with a 4.53 goals against. So that takes some of the mystique away, at least in the playoffs with Detroit. 58-59, 67 games played, 23 wins is 5th overall, 36 losses is 1st overall. So rough year for Detroit. 8 ties, 3.09 goals against average, which is 6th. He gets 5 shutouts that year, no playoffs, but 4th in Hart voting and a second team All-Star. Meaning he played pretty well. The team in front of him wasn't very good. So does that continue? Well, kind of a little bit, sort of. So 59-60, plays 58 games, has 24 wins, or 4th overall. 20 losses is 5th overall, 14 ties, 2.66 goals against average, which is 3rd in the league. 5 shutouts in the playoffs, 6 games, a 2-4 record, 2.82 goals against, no shutouts. So that happens, and then 60-61 rolls around, 37 games. 11 wins is 8th overall in the NHL. Again, there are not very many backup goaltenders in the NHL. And when there are, they don't play very much at all. You've got a 70-game schedule. It starts to creep up to that 80-game mark as we get into the 70s. But, yeah, they're just expected to play every game. 17 losses, which is 4th overall. 8 ties, 3.13 goals against, which is 6th in the league. 2 shutouts in the playoffs. 8 games played, a 5-3 record, 2.32 goals against average, 1 shutout in the playoffs. 61-62, 43 games, 14 wins, that's 5th overall. 21 losses, that's 4th overall, and 8 ties. 3.28 goals against, he's 6th again there. 5 shutouts. He doesn't register in any of the voting in that season. Odd for him, but here we go. 62-63, 48 games, 21 wins, that's 4th overall in the NHL. 16 losses, also 4th. 7 ties, 2.54 goals against. That is 4th overall in the National Hockey League. 3 shutouts. In the playoffs, 11 games, 5-6 record, 3.18 goals against average, no shutouts. He is 3rd in Hart voting, and he's a second-team All-Star that year. So playing quite well. 63-64, what would be his final year, for a bit anyways, with Detroit. 53 games, 25 wins, that's 3rd. 20 losses, also 3rd. 7 ties, 2.64 goals against. He's 4th in the league there. 5 shutouts, and in the playoffs, 13 games, a 6-5 record, 2.75 goals against average, 1 shutout, and he's 7th in Hart voting. So again, he's an MVP, right? So what happens is, June the 10th of 1964, he is claimed. So basically it's the same idea as what waivers are now. You had players that, could be picked up in what was called the intra-league draft. And so basically the Leafs pick up Terry Sawchuk for nothing. He leaves Detroit, goes to Toronto, and in 64-65, 36 games, 16 wins, which is 4th overall, 13 losses, which is 7th overall, 7 ties, 2.56 goals against average, that's 5th in the league, 1 shutout. In the playoffs, 1 game, he loses that game and allows 3 goals in that game. 65-66. He's down to playing 27 games, so he's playing a lot less. His 10 wins are 7th overall. His 11 losses are 8th overall. 3 ties. 3.16 goals against average. That's 6th in the league. 1 shutout. He loses both games he plays in the playoffs. Again, his average is a 3 in those playoffs. 66-67. This is a big year for Toronto fans, right? So he plays 28 games, 16 wins. That's 5th. 6 losses and 3 ties. 2.81 goals against average. That's 6th in the league. 2 shutouts. In the playoffs, he plays 10 games, a record of 6-4, 2.66 goals against, no shutouts, but Stanley Cup. So that last Stanley Cup for Toronto that they won to date, Terry Sawchuk was one of the 2 goalies for that team. And really remarkable that Sawchuk in 67 is still able to do that when he came into the league 17 years earlier than that, right? So what happens after Toronto wins the Stanley Cup? Expansion. The first expansion. Toronto hasn't won a Stanley Cup since that first expansion. And in that first expansion on June the 6th, the LA Kings claim Terry Sawchuk. Makes total sense. You've got a brand new team coming in. You're picking up a goaltender who's won a whole bunch of games. At that point, he was the number 1 goaltender in wins in NHL history. So in 67-68, he's with the LA Kings. 36 games, 10 wins. His 17 losses are 6 overall. 5 ties, 3.07 goals against, 2 shutouts. In the playoffs, 5 games, a record of 2-2, 3.86 goals against. He records a shutout in the playoffs. And then on October the 10th, so as we're getting ready for the next season, he is traded for Jimmy Peters to the Detroit Red Wings. So he goes back to Detroit for the 68-69 season. Only plays 13 games that year, a record of 4-5-3, 2.63 goals against, and no shutouts. He doesn't stay. June the 17th, he is traded with Sandy Snow to the New York Rangers in exchange for Larry Jeffrey. Yep, the Larry Jeffrey. So he goes to the Rangers, and it's kind of an unceremonious ending to his career. In 69-70, he only plays 8 games, a record of 3-1-2, 2.91 goals against, 1 shutout. Plays 3 playoff games, an 0-1 record, 4.51 goals against in those playoffs. So Terry Sawchuk plays 11 All-Star games in his career. Absolutely a major star through most of his career. A lot of the shutouts are early on. So again, once the modern game came in, shutouts dropped off for a while. But 971 games played in total is 5th overall all-time in the National Hockey League. His 445 wins is 8th currently in the National Hockey League. 336 losses is also 8th on the all-time list. His 171 ties, that is 1st overall in that category. His goals against average in his career, 2.5. That's not too shabby. 103 shutouts. That was 2nd overall. And when I started watching hockey, I never thought anybody would get close, because when I started watching hockey, that's the live puck era, where shutouts, the league leader might have had 3, maybe 2. You might get a guy who has 4. To me, it felt like nobody will ever get close. Then we saw the dead puck era, and we saw Marty Brodeur and the Devils and what they were able to do with shutouts. And Marty Brodeur pushes Terry Sawchuk down to 2nd on the all-time list. In the playoffs, 106 games for Sawchuk, 54 wins, 47 losses, 2.53 goals against average, and 12 shutouts. Obviously, he's a Hall of Famer. He has Stanley Cup rings to his name as well. And again, he was seen as revolutionizing the game, as the best goaltender of all time. And I will not argue with somebody who says, I watched Sawchuk, he was the best of all time. And that's why when I talk about, best goaltenders, I say during the era that I've watched. Because I don't have an educated opinion on Sawchuk, other than he was very remarkably consistent in Detroit. He was an absolute star for them and helped them get Stanley Cups. 3 Stanley Cups in Detroit, and then the 1 in Toronto. So 4 cups in all. Guy was a winner. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.